Welcome to Diligent Canine, and this is the grooming episode. I'm not sure which category to post this in, but it'll probably be both in the management and relationship stage, relationship and management sections, because it's important for both. So let's get into that. Managing your dog. You will need to bathe it, trim its nails, brush its teeth at some point in its life. So let's get into that. Brushing. I use a de-shedding brush and a regular massage brush. These are pretty inexpensive. These, the Furminator ones, they work awesome, but they can be a little pricey. However, they are absolutely worth it, especially if you have a dog with a double coat like this one that blows it twice a year, or sheds a little bit throughout the year, all year, and then twice a year drops their coat. So when you brush your dog, most dogs won't have too much of a problem with it. At least that's been my experience. It's not so much of a hassle compared to like trying to trim their nails or something. I do find it easier for all of these grooming activities to have my dog on somewhat of a raised platform. So whether that is like a raised garden, a stack of pallets like I have here, the back of a truck, anything like that, it's just a little easier on your back to not have to be down on your knees, or certainly to bend over. So when you're grooming your dog, it's nothing special here other than having your attention on the animal. So I've mentioned this in other videos where dogs are incredibly perceptive and attuned to your body language and how engaged you are with them. So brushing them and grooming them, yes, is an essential part of managing their lives and your life with the dog, but it's also time that you can spend just hanging out with your dog. So kind of like cleaning or organizing things might help calm you down. Hanging out with your dog and giving them just a daily brush, even if it's just for 5 or 10 minutes, probably not even 10 minutes, 5 minutes or less, can be really helpful for the dog and for you. It's been shown in a couple different studies, though I don't have the resources available right away, that petting dogs and brushing or grooming dogs has the same physiological effects on the dog as it does on the human while the human is doing it. And what that means is that while you're petting your dog to soothe and calm yourself down, you're also calming your dog down. So while your heart rate drops and your blood pressure goes down, when you're taking time to care for and just relax and be present with your dog, the same thing is happening to your dog. Their heart rate's dropping, their blood pressure is going down, and they're enjoying the time just being with you without distractions or any extra stimulus as well. If your dog does get anxious during grooming, then remember that it's always okay to take a break, and that'll be true through whether you're brushing them or trimming their nails or brushing their teeth. In fact, it may well be the case until they get used to it being part of the process of their daily lives. And you're gonna have to sort of stick to your guns. Like a lot of things, you don't have to be mean to the animal, but you might have to be real firm and hold them in place and realize that, or help them realize that this is gonna happen. But it's your job to not get angry about it and to stay fair in this situation. That means we're gonna stay in it, and maybe I can only brush you 3 strokes before I throw a ball for you to fetch. So that you start to learn that this is a fun process. One, that it has to be done and you're not gonna get away from it until it's done, but we can have fun along the way. So whether you can brush the whole side of your dog or your whole dog without them squirming around will depend on you and the dog and your temperaments, but remember that you can make it as individualized as you need. So like I said, whether you can only barely brush your dog just 1 stroke down their back before they get antsy and squirm around, maybe it's a big success for you to be able to get a few strokes in a row before you feed them a treat, which is not an uncommon way to help your dog relax while you're brushing them. And like I said, you can also use toys throughout this process as well. Getting a little more complicated now, we're going to brush the dog's teeth, and there are lots of toothpastes on the market. I think they all work pretty well. They all usually taste really good for the dog. This one is natural peanut flavor, so it's made by Nylabone. Like I said, there are lots of products out there. As for toothbrushes, they make dog toothbrushes that kind of have like an angle, like the tip of your finger kind of bent, that kind of help get around the dog's mouth a little better. This is just a child toothbrush that I got from any drugstore, grocery store, and it works well too, although it is really soft. That is important. Just like you don't, if you are a young lady and you didn't want your mom like ripping at your hair when she brushed it, or if you're a young man like myself and mom spits in her hand and pats down your hair, you don't want to be rough with this process. So you shouldn't be really ripping at the dog's hair, and you shouldn't be like viciously scrubbing their mouth either. As far as how often to brush your dog's teeth, I usually try to do it once or twice a week, but really the best answer is as often as you can remember, as often as you think about it. Remember that we as humans, we still brush our teeth 2 to 3 times a day and have a professional clean our teeth twice a year or once every 6 months at the dentist. So the best answer to when you should brush your dog's teeth is as often as you can think about it, and probably once a week is a good starting point. So when I brush my dog's teeth, I always start by letting them smell the product. Like I said, they usually smell and taste pretty good for the dog, and I put some on the toothbrush and I rub it down in there with my finger to make sure that he can't just lick it off very easy. But then I've got some on my finger that I give him for a treat, and let him know that more good stuff is coming, and I can kind of rub it around on his gums to let him know that something's about to go in his mouth. So when I start that, you'll need to hold their muzzle and kind of lift up their lips and go around their mouth, both on the top and the bottom. So again, it's important to remember that you can take breaks during this process. Just like with the brushing, you kind of got to let the dog know that this is something that's going to happen whether you really want it to or not. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to be a jerk about it. However, the job has to get done. So I typically get one side, the top and the bottom of the dog's mouth, before I add more toothpaste, and it's the same thing. So just like we took a little break here for the dog to lick up that toothpaste and get it out of his mouth, I put some more on, I rub it down in the brush, and I'm gonna snack. I'm gonna go back to the other side. And again, I'm not pushing super hard. I'm really just letting the weight of the brush slide over the teeth and trying to time it when he opens his mouth to lick to try to get the inside. To get the bottom, you're gonna have to hold their mouth closed a little bit, okay? And depending on how mouthy or bitey your dog is, to get the inside of their teeth, that is not the outside, but inside, you might have to wrap your fingers around their teeth and kind of hold their mouth. Now, this can hurt a little to a lot, depending on how comfortable or not your dog is with the process. So sometimes I like to use the end of another toothbrush to hold in their mouth. And again, I'm not choking the dog. It's just kind of back there by his molars, so I can get another toothbrush in there and get up under the inside of his mouth. Nail clipping. Nail clipping is essential. It's also probably the grooming aspect that your dog is most uncomfortable with, or at least it kind of seems that way to me. So remember, like I said with the brushing, you can take breaks as often as you need, or as often as your dog needs, to feel comfortable with the process. Nevertheless, you have to make sure it gets done. So depending on things like how active your dog is, if they dig, what kind of surfaces they walk on, dirt versus concrete, etc., will determine the rate that you, how often you have to trim their nails, because they're not getting worn off naturally. With that said, the rear paws probably won't grow as fast as the front paws, so the front paws are really what you kind of need to watch out for. So when you're trimming the dog's nails, it's important to have the scissor type or an electric type clipper. So that is a scissor that shears like this to cut the nail, rather than one that has sort of an open space and like a shade that slides off like a guillotine, because those types, they crush the nail rather than cut it. So if you do happen to go too far back with your dog, it's going to be a lot more painful. It's already painful. If you're a good human, you feel bad because your dog yelps and then they bleed and then they're kind of an anxious mess, and it's really hard to get them to do it again. So what I do have with this scissor type is a guard on it that I always set to the lowest possible setting, so that I'm never taking off more than I need to. And I'll say again, it's a good idea when you're starting to do this with your dog to have food with you or a ball. So this might look different for different people and different dogs. You might be able to clip several nails before you need to reward your dog and give them a break, or you might need to just like hold their paw and hold the clippers and give them some food. You know, especially once they've had a bad experience one time, they might know that the thing that smells and looks like this means my feet are about to get hurt. So I'm gonna be a little brave here and clip my dog's nails live on camera. So we'll see how it goes. That one's good. So you're getting a little long down here. Yes. So you can see he got a little anxious, but looks like he knew some food was coming. And this is something that Dean had a problem with early on. He really did not like his nails being clipped. So the fact that I can talk and still chip just a little bit off of, that was 2 or 3 in a row without a reward, is pretty good progress for him. Don't forget the prey claw. Yes. That can be quite painful if you don't trim it for your dog, or quite painful for you when your dog is playing and jumping around and catches you with it. Moving on, this paw is pretty good. So that's that. Thanks for watching. And remember, grooming and caring for your dog helps build trust in the relationship. So earlier in the video, I talked about brushing and hanging out with your dog and building a relationship that way. But it's also important to remember that all solid relationships are built on trust. So when you're doing something that is scary for the dog, like clipping their nails or something that they're anxious or fearful about, and you go through it with them, and you are a role model and a leader for your dog and teach them that this is something we can get through, this is something you will be rewarded for, that's the kind of behavior your dog is looking to you for and will pay unmeasurable dividends in your relationship overall.